I was like, but what you don't understand, I'm in a season and maturity in my life. I don't want the juice. And more importantly, hanging around you, I realized I ain't you.
Right.
And nor do I want to be you. Because I see what it commands and demands. I really don't want that.
Right.
I want to be with my wife and kids and really low key, that's it, and just have a bag.
Right. People are like, oh, I have 5 love languages. Oh yeah, I read that book. Then why are you seeing us?
I'm not the friend for the good times. I'm the friend for the hard times.
We would love to have you for a round 2. We're gonna see if we can make that happen because we didn't touch on.
What you mean? We can see it, but that sounds real.
That's no. I know y'all busy.
So when you come to the country, that's when we shoot.
Yeah.
Nigga, when you here, we here.
Sure, we should. Let's do it.
You talked about kind of your love and double down on a woman, but your ultimate woman, Shirley, talk about it now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You I was like, yo,
years, man.
Once when I heard what you did with the, your first 2 girls, I was like, oh, that's Shannon. Shannon goes all in, and you guys, you got Marriage Inc. You know what I mean? I got my Marriage is Dope shirt.
Yes, sir.
Let's talk about Shirley and the life you guys build and the lessons you learned, man.
Well, early on, I have always been an all-in guy with a woman, but it's not to say that I've always been faithful.
Okay.
Right. But I knew and I've always, you never have to ask me what I want. Like I'm not one of those dudes that doesn't know what he wants, doesn't know where it's going, doesn't know. I might not know the steps that I need to take to get there, but I always know what I want. I'm never going to. You're never not going to get a I don't know answer. And when I met Shirley, I knew exactly what I wanted. I knew that if I got married again, I did not want to play certain games. I did not want to. So when I met Shirley, first when I met her, she was thugged out, right? Right. Shirley's a complete thug, believe it or not, but a very shapely thug, right? I met her. She had on big sweatpants, a big sweatshirt, and had an afro. I saw her from behind, and I was going to say, "What's up, dude?" And when she turned around, I was like, "Oh, she's obviously a woman." Sure. And I greeted her properly, and then I wasn't interested in her at all. At all. I needed a woman that had, that flowing bob with the permed hair and the asymmetrical cut.
The image.
Right. Yeah. Your fairer skin, maybe, know. And she was none of that. And but then I saw her in church one day, and she had on this dress that fit her shape. Right. And I remember she touched me on this shoulder. She was going down the aisle. And she just touched me to say, in Seventh-day Adventism, a normal greeting on Saturday is Happy Sabbath, right? So she was saying Happy Sabbath to me while we were in church, and church was about to start. She touched me on my shoulder. She would say, "Oh, hey, Happy Sabbath," hugs, whatever, and then she was walking on down the aisle. And so, I greeted, "Hey, how you doing? Good to see you." And, looked her in her face and greeted. And then she went walking. And then I said,
"You got the lean."
Because the pew was right there.
Right. You had to get
I leaned a little bit, and then I leaned back. I hope nobody was sitting behind me and saw that.
They probably saw it, but it don't matter now.
The very next Wednesday, I was staying at my friend's house. She was the nanny to their son. Okay. And she was there at the house doing whatever she did for him in the house. And she was leaving. So you know how you do the police parking, like one pulls this way, and then you both on the driver's side, but you can talk to each other. Sure, yeah. We stopped, and I was like, "Hey, you want to go to a movie or something like that?" All of a sudden, right? And that same Saturday, we had dinner at my friend's house. I did a lot of the cooking, which people were surprised that, "Oh, you did this cooking, blah, blah, blah," And then, you come, you take your shoes off and what have you. And she had on these very sheer stockings. So I could see her feet. Right. I was like, okay, all right. Between the combination of her shape, she was a pretty girl. Right. And then her feet, I was like, oh, this has to.
No hammer time.
We have to. And, but look, I knew I had dedicated myself to not having sex.
Okay.
Not having sex.
How long that last?
Not long.
So, hold on. Well, we missed a couple pieces. First, you was married before.
I was married before, yes.
And you had, obviously, an experience that led you to be, I'm guessing, how old were you when you met Shirley?
I was about 31.
So you just came out of the Army, you had a divorce, you had an experience, you're like, look, you're in a transition in life.
Right.
And you're like, look, I'm not going into my 30s. I left my 20s.
Right.
So what led you to the decision before you even courting Shirley to say, look, man, sex is off the table right now because I'm just trying to get my mind, my spirit right.
Well, my transition from the military to civilian world was around being a motivational speaker. Mm-hmm. And I had given my first the speech or the story or my testimony I've been sharing. I had given my first one at my church. And then at that church, they were like, oh, you must be going to Oakwood. You got to be going to preach or pastor. Like at the end of this, I'm like, wait, whoa, hold on. What y'all talk about? And I talked to a mentor of mine, a former pastor of mine, and I was like, am I being called to ministry? Because I don't want to not answer the phone if the phone is ringing.
Yeah.
And he gave me some instructions on how to know and how to understand and what aspect of ministry and all of that. So I said, okay, I'm going to go to Oakwood. And he said, if you go down there, don't get into a serious relationship. Just date. Meet people, go out, have a good time. Do not be sexual. Don't get into a serious relationship.
Right.
I did the exact opposite of what he told me to do. But I knew that I was going to study ministry, and I was very serious about that. Porn was a huge part of my life. A porn addiction had kind of taken over during my time, that from when me and my first wife broke up to this point. So I knew like porn couldn't be a part of my life. You know, being sexually promiscuous. You know, I'm studying ministry. I shouldn't be, moving like that. And so I had gotten to a point where this was the man I wanted to be. And then I decided whoever I meet next, I'm going to be absolutely and completely butt naked honest with. I'm going to tell him everything. So when I met Shirley, I told her, man, I got bad credit. I'm addicted to porn. You know, I just went down a list of things that I was aware of.
Hopefully not on the first date, of course.
It was like the second date.
Dang.
It was the second. It was like, well, we had already been hanging out with each other, right? So it was in that time that we had started dating where I thought it was necessary to tell her this. Mm-hmm. Before it was just like, oh, what's up, homie? Like she wasn't nobody that I would share that with. But once I decided, hey, I'm going to start kicking with her, I'm going to be completely honest with her, right? I laid everything on the table. Now it's up to you. Right? And
she probably, women respond well to honesty. Though. She probably
she didn't respond well to that at all.
Dang.
Because the actual truth went contrary to her. There were triggers for her, like being addicted to porn. She was like, well, I don't want that around my kids. I was like, well, what kids? What you talking about? Because we ain't even there. Right? We don't even have that kind of relationship to be talking about kids. So, and then once she began to realize that just because you admit your faults doesn't mean you're free of them. So she started to experience the results of my trauma. She started to experience the results of my irresponsibility. She was experiencing, even though she had entered into a relationship with me, she was like, oh, wait, this is a lot. This is a lot going on. And I saw that look. You ever seen that look of disappointment in your woman's eyes? Like, like you just can't get it right. You just don't get
how you give you the world and you keep messing this up.
Right. And I would see that look in her eyes, and it was a punishing experience. And which, you know, at some point in time made me want to be better. It took me a while. It took me a while.
That's why you gotta honor your women so much, because especially your wife. Like I was telling somebody, like, it's not that we love each other, it's that you stayed. You know what I'm saying? Like the respect ain't about, you know, man, remember that time? No, it's like, remember those times. And you knew that, you experienced that because of me, with you,
chose
because
me.
of you, with you, and you decided I'm staying. That right there, I'm good. I don't the other stuff. You know what I mean? The bells and whistles, the pomp and circumstances, all that other stuff for the internet. That's for somebody else. But for me, it's because we've been through so much, and you still decided as a grown adult.
Right, you chose it.
I'm gonna stay.
So when you was at the vow renewal, when you see my tears, that's them tears.
Right.
That's like this chick, like in spite of, like I remember starting Celebrate Recovery, which is like a Christian 12-step program. I was going to SA meetings, which is Sexual Anonymous, I guess. I always get that wrong. Sex addict. So it's SAA and it's SA. Anyway. And then I was like, well, we decided to go to Celebrate Recovery. And when you go, you go to a main meeting and then you break out into like individual kind of support groups. And so I was in one that was for men and geared towards sexual addiction. And she was in one that was like codependency and different things.
Hold on, what led y'all to even get into that? Like what got you to say that you both agreed to get involved with this type of intervention?
Well, when we started counseling, and my counselor, Renee
Were you married?
Mobley, we were married. Renee, this is years later, and you've heard Jeremy talk about Renee Mobley.
Yeah.
That she's a wonderful, amazing. She is our counselor, and we were in a session, and it was in that session that I came to grips with the fact that I had a sexual addiction.
Now, are you still referring to the sexual addiction with the porn?
Yeah. Yeah. But I didn't know it was an addiction. I thought it was a problem or a struggle.
Because I was going to ask you, what does that look like? Because some of our viewers may be struggling with this and may not even know that they may have an addiction. Like, what does that look like? What does that feel like day to day?
Well, basically it looks like you're trying to scratch an itch but using all things sexual.
Sure.
Or things sexual. That might not be all things for you or me or whatever. Like it depends. And so there's this yearning to be accepted. There's this itch of humanity that needs to be scratched that exists because of your upbringing, because of your socialization, because of your relationships or lack thereof.
Right.
And you use the burning idea of being satisfied or being desired or being hunted in a particular kind of way sexually to scratch that itch. And but it's that itch. You know how you get that ear and you like, but you never can get to the it, but that right there is just enough to kind of, but you still like, oh, if I could just get a little deeper and then a little deeper, and you're never satisfied. Yeah. And that's what sexual addiction becomes. And so once I started going to these meetings, then I wanted to, we talked together and we decided to search out, even additional help. So I was seeing a counselor, was going to SA meetings, and then we wanted additional help. Right?
So when you...
that she could participate in.
Hey, what's up, family? It's your boy, Coach Crump, the King Coach. Listen, I'm so excited to help celebrate my 40th birthday. I'm hosting my first ever King Conference, man. I'm super excited. It's gonna be right here in Atlanta, Georgia on March 25th, an all-day event. We got DeMont Pope, we got Jeremy Anderson, we got Shannon and Shirley Austin. We got my boy DeJuan Matunga coming down from New York. Listen, this is an exciting event. I'm giving all the game of tips of what I've learned and the responsibilities I managed for over 20 years on being a husband, being a father, being a brother, being a mentor, being a leader as a man. To learn, to get the game, to get the sauce, to have workshop. This is for men, this is for women, adult only event. Seats are limited. Be there or be square, man. I see you at the King Conference. Let's go.
So when you told her, I'm guessing you told her that you had a problem, or she like, look,
no, we were in the counseling session together when this discovery happened.
So she really didn't.
She knew I had a problem, but no one framed it as a sexual addiction. I didn't even know that was a thing.
And so and her support, obviously going to counseling with you, but how did it come up that she was codependent and she needed to do intervention separate of the therapy that you guys are doing?
I don't even know. I don't remember how that happened, how that came about, how we ended up at the Celebrate Recovery together. It was just we wanted to find something additional and then something we could do together.
Was she always in that supportive space for your intervention? Because you mentioned it shocked her.
She was very
dating.
supportive of once she saw, because she saw the breaking happening. She would witness the breaking. Mm-hmm. I remember it very clearly. It was snot in my nose, it was snot on the floor, and it was connected. That's how much I was crying in the counselor's office. It was like when the breaking happened, when I came to understand that this is what this was, it broke me. And she witnessed the breaking. And she became like when I found the meetings, I had to do that, you know, my counselor was like, you got to find all of this intervention on your own. I could point you to it, but that's not going to help you. You got to find it. And that's when I talked to a bunch of men, and they like, I could send them a link for a resource. I'm like, no, you got to find it. You know, it's got to be that important to you. Yeah. And so she witnessed that, and when it was time for me to go to meetings, she would remind me, like gentle reminder, hey, it's 6:00. You're gonna be like, yep, I'm going. I'm heading on out. I could walk to it. Or I would drive, but I could walk to it. Yep, I would go, and it was profound. But I'm trying to get to a point. So we're in this session at Celebrate Recovery, and we're coming out, and I get a phone call. The phone call was from an escort I met while I was on tour. And in that moment, I had to tell her that I had not been even faithful to my commitment of my recovery. And her level of disappointment was like she, and now mind you, this was a person that I met that I really liked, that I really connected to, and I thought got me. So that's why I kept her number. And we were communicating. And she called me. And it was very awkward because it was like, you know, who is that? You know, what is that about? Yeah. And blah, blah, blah. And then so you asked me a direct question. I'm going to give you an answer. And she asked. And I told her who it was. And then her question was, were we intimate? Was I intimate with her in the same way that I was intimate with my wife? Did we do some of the same things? Woo! When you ask a direct question, bro. Goodness. And she was like, you know, did you? That's what she said. She said, did you eat her pussy? Right. And you know, come on, bro. Yeah. Jeez, come on, baby. Yeah. When you get that direct, and I stand on that, if you ask me a question, I'm going to answer that question. But don't ask me if you don't want to know. Yeah. And I answered, and I was like, yes. Oh, that just broke her down, and she was flying out to her folks. Her father was very sick during this time, and she had to leave, and she was flying out. And I remember that massive amount of disappointment. I had disappointed her before, but in that moment,
it stays with you.
It was massive.
And it motivates you, man.
So those tears that you saw was, man, she stuck with me through this.
Jeez.
Through that, through all of the other things that you know, my craziness and my irresponsibility and my me not getting it.
Right.
She stuck with me through that.
Some people may say guilt on the man's part can drive a lot of those choices to stay and work through it as well. Well, clearly, that's not the case. Obviously, that's not the case. It's not like you obviously, you're going to feel bad. You're going to feel hurt somebody that you love. But guilt of doing things is different from really, really and truly coming to a space of understanding, space of trying to just be better, trying to resolve, trying to heal, trying to rebuild what was broken. That's important for people to understand as well. Like, guilt drives a lot of our decisions too. And when you come to a space of true healing, like you was talking about earlier, guilt's not even a variable that you consider because it's coming from a different place.
Well, guilt never drove me.
Right.
Because for a good majority of the time, I thought she was crazy. And so I was justified.
Okay.
But what did drive me was what you just described.
Yeah.
My desire, like I was not being the man that I saw in my head.
Sure.
And I wasn't being who I wanted to be. And a lot of the choices that I had made just made me feel shame to look myself in the eyes.
This person I'm looking at.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And my level of brokenness, because I was primarily driven by being desired by my woman. That was my primary desire.
I concur.
My primary driving.
Yeah, I wanna pull out that. What's the word you use for gradual again for the colors?
Gradient.
Gradient. When you talk about gradient, right? Like when it comes to being a man that you see yourself being, right? Ultimately, right? That gradient journey that you're on, right? You talk about the vow renewal. The tears was reminiscing on the gradient journey of you getting to that 25 years, right? And this constant, you're never there. You're always evolving to get there. As a seasoned brother, as a big bro, as a mentor to us, like, what can you share with us that really, that you understand that part, but you also practice it? And because somebody will say, look, man, once I'm at a certain age and stage, it is what it is. My girl just got to deal with it. But for you embody still in this season of your life, like growth in all aspects. You was talking about some of the tech support. You was, lamenting over some, you're building a brand. You're still in your 50s, steady growing and evolving and keeping up with what's going on. You talked about that you personally valued being the type of man. Like, what is that value? Like, why do you have that value? Why does that mean so much to you?
The thing that drives me the most, it might seem really, really petty, but I don't want an empty funeral.
That's not petty at all, actually.
Do you understand what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
Oftentimes I've envisioned my funeral with just my wife and my kids
think about that
and
a lot, bro.
a couple of people there.
Wow.
And that means I didn't have any impact on anybody's life. It means I was a dick. It means that no one wanted to really be around me. No one saw me as a friend. No one is going to miss me, except, my wife and my kids and maybe my sister and a few people. And so I realized that I had to be more impactful in people's lives, in everybody's life. And for me to do that, I had to face some demons and some monsters and come to some realities and understand that, who I am and why God placed me on this earth. And once I began to really embrace that, embrace those truths and those realities, and I remember him saying this: to be a motivational speaker, you sure aren't very motivational. So I thought about motivational speaking as the talent of getting up and being able to deliver a thing
that moves people.
Right. In a moment. But that was what motivational speakers do. That's not who they are. Who they are is motivational.
That stuff.
That stuff. Yeah. Who they are is when they're sitting next to somebody on the plane.
Yeah.
And there's no audience. There's an audience of one.
Yeah.
Right? When there's an audience of son or daughter. And can you get them to want to run through a brick wall? And and I got to a point where this was the man that I wanted to be, and you know, I knew that I came to a point where that man does not necessarily always have to be the front man. Yeah. Like when you like just the name of the podcast, like we talked about kingship. Like I just don't believe. Like when you hear people like, "Hey, what's up, King? Hey, King." You see the sisters, the conscious sisters, King,
Queen,
right, Queen, all that. I'm like, it's no way. It's not that many kingdoms. Somebody got to be a subject.
Yeah. Mm.
Can I be a subject?
Yeah.
Can I be a dedicated, loyal, rabid? Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know, when we watch Black Panther, everybody couldn't be T'Challa. Yeah. But what made that community, that country, so amazing was not the king. It was the subjects. Loyal to the king.
Ooh. Now you talking spicy right now.
Right? And so I'm like, well, what kind of subject can I be? Right. What does that look like?
Man, I gotta say this part because, you know, I was telling Jake and PJ earlier, I was like, you know, one of Jeremy's thing was like, bro, I know you got the juice and I don't want you to ever feel like, I was like, but what you don't understand, I'm in a season and maturity in my life. I don't want the juice. And more importantly, hanging around you, I realized I ain't you.
Right.
And nor do I want to be you. Because I see what it commands and demands. Yeah. I really don't want that.
Right.
I want to be with my wife and kids and really low key, that's it, and just have a bag to do what we want to do. Right. That is literally it. Right. I tried stuff. Once I got the responses, I realized, oh, nah, that's not for me. And then I said, a king needs support. A king needs an armor bearer. A king needs a soldier to roll with him to know that he don't got to second guess if he makes a mistake. Second guess if he goes into conflict. That you're going to be like, I ain't signed up for that. Look, I'm not the friend for the good times. I'm the friend for the hard times. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, the more I buy into that, the more I like it. The more, and I was telling them too, I'm glad that my wife's my boss. My pride, my issue is pride. And I was like, I need to publicly report to her in a servant way. Just because of my own development that where I am, that I can really, you know, I talk about that movie Doctor Strange where the ancient one says we all got these demons and you think because you get old, you're going to lose your demons. Nah, your demons with you. Your challenges, your frailties, they're there. I don't care how much gray kicks in. They're there. So we call me the ancient one. I've mastered to rise above them. Right. I no longer give them the power to yin and yang me no more. I accept that they're there. I know what their assignment is trying to do. And I've decided every single day to rise above them. And when I hear you say that, it's like, man, we're not having that conversation. It is okay to be a support system. It's okay to be a brother. Right. But you can still, in my humble opinion, be in leadership as a king.
Definitely. In
that supportive role.
Definitely.
You know what I mean?
Definitely. No, I've said that before, and it's not to bring anyone down or belittle anyone or whatever. It is just to understand that bloodlines exist for a reason, right? So to assume royalty simply because I'm acting in a royal way removes the legitimacy of actual royalty, right? And so, but now in a spiritual realm, in a Christian spiritual realm, because I am a child of the king, we'll use that cliche, right? Then that puts me into a royal line, a royal lineage, but there's still only one king, right? You could be a duke, you could be an earl, you could be a duchess, you could be all of these different things, but that does not make you now, because, and how I know that people might read this like, you know, or listen to this and say like, you're diminishing yourself, but usually people are at coronations, like right when it's like, and I didn't get coronated. I didn't get coronated.
Yeah, but in these spaces you occupy, you still have that leadership. You're still empowered to do it is what you do.
Definitely.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's the point we're trying to drive.
Yes, definitely.
One king, multiple rules, but in that rule, be your best. Be your kingship. Well, let me not say your kingship. Be your leader. Be the best leader you can be.
Right. It's a metaphor.
Yeah.
It's a metaphor.
Yeah.
Now,
and what I try to stay away from is one ring to rule them all.
Yeah.
Like that right there is. I don't know if you understand that.
That Lord of the Rings. That Lord of the Rings. That Lord of the Rings, man.
So that was great was you left the 70s. At least you came into the 2000s. You know what I'm saying? So we all caught that one. You know what I'm saying? But Taps, nobody caught that one.
We want to stay away from one ring to rule them all.
Yeah.
But I want to get into Marriage Inc., man. Tell us about Marriage Inc. and what that's all about.
Man, Marriage Inc. is a mindset, is a concept that was deposited in me. I don't remember when, a few years ago. It was a book concept initially, and God pointed out to me that the divorce rate is astronomically high, and that also the business failure rate. Shirley and I were moving into an entrepreneurial space.
Okay.
And we understood, based on doing the research, that businesses can fail just as often as marriages can fail. And
what was that number?
For the same reason.
What was that number you shared with us about Valerie?
Well, recently, there's one number that we are standing on as far as our sense of urgency is that 750,000 couples divorce each year. Right, so that's
they had it at 50-some% at one point.
Well, that's a different statistic.
That's a different, yeah. Okay,
right, but the amount of couples that are divorcing, what's even a scarier statistic is the amount of people that are choosing not to get married. Right. So when you start putting all of these kinds of
giant,
right, because now they're choosing not to get married, they're choosing not to have children.
Right.
They're choosing not to involve themselves in the drama of becoming one. And as a result of that, China is experiencing like that one child or two child policy is kicking them in the butt right now.
Yeah.
And they're like, have kids, kids.
Yeah.
And the people are like, I don't want to have no kids. Like we used to travel in the world and doing what we want to do. But Marriage Inc., we saw that we thought that if you could take business success principles and apply them to the marriage relationship, that you would achieve the same types of results.
In both spaces.
Yeah. But even if you weren't in business, if you're just a regular, person, just have a regular job, but you took these business principles and then you applied them to the marriage relationship, you would achieve the same kind of success. So one of the things we do with our couples is we have them establish a marriage mission statement, and it is to be posted somewhere in their house. So we understand what your mission statement is as a couple. We understand what your core values are and your goals as a couple, and it's somewhere in the house. Like when you go into Apple headquarters or Google headquarters, you know what Google is all about. You know what they stand on. You know what their core values are. It's not just it's an intentionality. You got to sit down and have conversations. Right. One of the things we coach to do is for couples to have quarterly planning sessions. To plan. So if you in Q1, going into Q2, you should be having Q2 planning sessions. To know when are date nights? Right. What's coming up on the calendar? What is the time that we have slotted as what's going on, and do we need to have something going on? Right? That's for our marriage. What conference are we going to? What workshop are we attending? How are we adding value to our marriage? But if you're just willy-nilly in it,
that's amazing. It's necessary.
Right? Right? But you have companies, you have departments that have weekly or bi-weekly or monthly or quarterly meetings to discuss the direction of the department. Or understand the vision that's being cast.
You said you do it for business projections,
right? You're projecting numbers or sales projections.
For sure.
If you don't have these meetings, then you got a company out there that's just willy-nilly, right? Yeah. So we said, let's apply these things. Marriage Inc. says, let's apply these things to the marriage relationship and see, throw it against the wall and see what sticks. And what we're finding is the people that apply the actual coaching principles are winning, and the people that don't are losing. They continue to find themselves in disparaging places, and why isn't it working, or just wanting to give up, or just have gotten divorced or split or whatever. And those couples that have said, something, we're going to invest in our marriage, and we're going to invest, and we're going to utilize, and we stand on this principle. You got a library? Let me ask you a question. I don't want to put you on the spot.
That's cool.
Are you where you want to be in your life?
Definitely not.
Definitely not.
Definitely not.
You have a library.
Not an official library, but I have a collection of books. Yeah.
You have a collection of books.
Yes.
Right. Would you say you have 50 books?
No.
Less or more?
Less.
Would you have 20 books?
Yes.
20 books, right? So you probably have some classics. Chris said, "Hey man, you got to check out
7 Habits."
Right. You got some staples,
sure.
right? You mentioned 7 Habits. If you took 7 Habits, broke it down over the year, and only read that book, but then actually applied the principles in the book, your life would be exactly where you wanted it to be.
Sure.
Neo Davis said the reason why he puts so much game in his PDFs, his ebooks, right, is because he knows people's not going to apply it. So he can put the secrets in, but they're not secrets because you're not going to do nothing with it.
Right. Or you're not even going to read it.
Or you're not going to read it, right? So most people are like, oh, I have 5 love languages. Oh yeah, I read that book. Then why are you seeing us? If you read that book and you applied the principles in the book, you wouldn't need us.
Yeah, it's the actual application, I think.
Exactly. So that's and I've heard Quest say, information changes situations. And I'm like, no, information applied changes situations.
So leave us with your final thought. We're going to go for you, Chizzy. I'm going to close out, but what's your final thought? Great podcast, but as we talk about, transitioning and still evolving, still becoming as a man, and learning to operate in our role responsibility and just being good leaders at the end of the day. What are your final thoughts you want to share with us?
There are 3 words that will have you to win. Hands down, no doubt about it. You can win with these 3 words. The 3 words are initiative, anticipation, and the 3rd word is gratitude. If you just focus on those 3 things, you will accomplish whatever it is that you want to accomplish in your life. Initiative. If you see it needs to be done, do it. Don't wait. The dishes are in the sink, wash them. Trash needs to be taken out, take it out. Kids need to go to school. Lunches need to be made, make the lunches. Who cares whose responsibility it is? If you see it needs to be done and it's not being done, do it. Anticipation. Look down the road.
Planning.
Right? And be able to position yourself, for success. Right? If you're going on a trip, check the weather. Anticipate, like, okay, I might need this, I might need that, it might rain. So let's see what the forecast is at least. It's going to be, so let me pack accordingly so you don't get down there and you're not surprised. And then gratitude, man. All of the great, wonderful, peaceful gurus and those that are, The Secret and these different books that about this, what people might call New Age thinking, but it's a higher level of thinking. Those that are of Eastern thought, Buddhism and Hinduism, that are steeped in that. There's one common theme that runs through Muhammad, Buddha, and Jesus, and that theme is gratitude. And if you can express gratitude, if you can experience, like to be thankful, like I could have focused on being late. As Chris said, we start at 9. I could have, as I'm riding down the road and I could be panicking that I'm going to be late for whatever reason, and then get here with a horrible attitude. and you be like, is that's the Shannon that was on the line? Like, he is a dick, right? I could have come in with that attitude, or I could have come in with a winning attitude. We about to have a good time and be thankful for being here,
for sure,
and let whatever happens from that mindset, right? And what I believe is we've had a wonderful time together, sitting in a great interview, a great podcast, whatever you want to call it.
We need a part 2,
right? But it is gratitude will have you winning in every situation. Someone could cut you off in traffic. You're like, man, I hope they get where they need to go. Instead of you don't be or road raging and speeding up or not letting them in. Right? I sit in places and I know people behind me are probably pissed off because I'm a person is turning or something. I'm like, and another person comes up, I'm like, and then another person will come up and they're like, I don't know. I'm like, it's okay. Man, you better go ahead. Go ahead. Right? Because I'm just trying to be in that place of gratitude. Because if I allow myself to sink to how I feel, I'm always in pain. There's never not a moment that I'm not in pain. If I do not experience the gratitude of being able to feel the sensation of pain, me being able to feel the sensation of pain means I'm alive.
Sure. Yeah.
And if I'm going to have life, I might as well have it more abundantly. So I rock the fly all-white shirt that I know my boy Jake is going to be like, he is blowing out my shot. Like, how am I, can I even allow, like, I can bedazzle my shirt. My shirt is bedazzled, bro. Right? Because I'm thankful. God, bro. And I don't give a right? I'm just going to live and walk in this space of gratitude. So that the opposite, the results of the lack of thereof, I don't experience.
Sure. Love it.
And I've experienced a lot of the results of not having gratitude. Cancer, congestive heart failure, cancer again. These types of stressors, uncontrolled high blood pressure. Like it's crazy. I can't continue living like that.
Man, I don't even know how you summed it up. I know we're gonna need a part 2,
bro.
I'm gonna put it out there.
We
yeah.
Let's do it serious
because there's a lot we did not cover. We touched a little bit on marriage.
I don't know.
Got that star power. You know what I'm saying?
I don't know. We might need to add another host.
Let's get it.
How old are you?
Come on, man.
How old are you?
I'm 46.
46. How old are you?
39.
Man, 3 decades of man right there. 30s, 40s, and 50s. Come on, baby. Come on, baby.
Yeah, man. Yeah, this
has been good.
This has been amazing. Like I said, we only touched on some of the things that we wanted to explore. Shannon, it was amazing having you on.
Thank you for having me.
Podcast. We would love to have you for a round 2. We're gonna see if we can make that happen because we didn't touch on the nuances.
What you mean? We can see it, but that sounds real.
I know y'all busy, man.
Get him, Shannon.
I know y'all busy, man. I know you got a lot going on.
I live in Alabama, right? I live on the eastern side of Atlanta.
Maybe it's me then. Maybe it's me coming from Bermuda. Bermuda.
Oh, that's right. So when you come to the country, that's when we shoot.
Yeah.
Nigga, when you here, we here.
Sure. Let's do it. I mean, we going to Bermuda. He coming on to Bermuda at the end of July. So
that's not gonna happen, but are they coming to Bermuda? Are they shooting? Y'all shooting a podcast in Bermuda?
Yeah, we try to make arrangements to get some episodes there.
Well, Shirley might want to go to Bermuda. I don't know.
We can talk about it, man.
Listen, I ain't scared. Y'all don't threaten me with a good time.
Hey, listen, man. I just want to say on behalf of the Boy Band King podcast, it was an absolute pleasure, man, to be with my brother, my big bro, our mentor, Shannon. He got the juice, man, and gratitude. I really left with the sense of taking from his wisdom, his experience, his stories, that at the end of the day, the ultimate pivot he made and all the lessons that he learned, particularly when he was sharing about, even if his mother and father was here today, he'll talk about Jamaican food and some Kool-Aid because he's just so grateful that he even had a mother and father. He's so grateful that he has a wife. He's so grateful that he has children, and he has a story to share. And so with that being said, man, I want y'all to go out and be grateful. Boy Man King podcast.
Catch you on the next.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, man. Good job, man.